Here we're asked to use PEMDAS to simplify the expressions below using our calculator as needed. PEMDAS, P is parentheses and brackets, E is exponents, MD, multiplication division in order of appearance from left to right, AS, addition and subtraction in order of appearance from left to right. Let's see how this helps us work through these examples. Part A, I have 8 plus 4 times a half minus 1/3 divided by 2. For PEMDAS, there are no parentheses or exponents, so what we're going to focus on is the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We're going to work this multiplication before we work this division. So let's see what it looks like when we focus on 4 times 1/2. So I start 8 plus, and 4 is really 4 over 1, so I'm going to write 4 times a half as 4 over 2. I'm going to go ahead and multiply across. Then I just write everything that's left to the minus 1/3. Then divided by 2, I'm going to go ahead and write that as divided by 2 over 1 to get ready for that next step. 4 over 2 is 2, so this becomes 8 plus 2 minus, and then this division comes next. I'm going to convert that to multiplication times 1/2. Now, left to right, I'm still focusing on multiplication and division. I have a multiplication problem here. So I have 8 plus 2 minus 1/2 times, or excuse me, 1/3 times 1/2 is 1/6. Now I can do addition and subtraction left to right in the order they appear. So this gives me 10 minus 1/6. 10 is really 10 over 1 because I'm going to need to combine with denominators of 6. I have 1/6. 10 over 1, 1 goes into 6 times. 6 times 10 is 60. So 10 is equivalent to 60 over 6. Now I can just subtract the numerators. 60 minus 1 over 6 gives me 59 over 6 as my final result. Let's double check this on our calculator. We're going to have to be really careful with the operations and with parentheses. So I'm going to start with 8 plus 4 times, I'm going to go ahead and put the 1/2 in parentheses just to be sure my calculator understands which numbers to combine as fractions, minus, and then parentheses, 1/3 divided by, and I don't need to put the 2 in parentheses. I do want my result as a fraction, so I'm going to press math and then option 1, so enter, enter, and that confirms our result of 59/6. Looking at part B, I have the quantity -1/4 squared plus 1/2. So PEMDAS tells me to address this exponent with the parentheses first. That means -1/4 times -1/4, that's going to be a positive 1/16 plus the 1/2 that's left over. Now I have two fractions. I'm going to add. After I get a common denominator. Common denominator is 16. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 8 times 1 is 8. So 8/16 is equivalent to 1/2. If I add the numerators now over the common denominator, I have 9/16, which should be my final result. Let's double check on the calculator. Parentheses, -1/4, so -1 divided by 4. I'm going to square that, plus 1/2, so 1 divided by 2, and then I want a fraction. So I press math and then enter, and enter again. Confirms my result of 9/16. In part C, we have 1/3 times -2/5 divided by 5/6. So we could go ahead and multiply because we need to do that first. But before we do that, we can actually take a step and convert that division at the end into multiplication, and then that might help us simplify a little bit. So I'm going to work with just rewriting 1/3 times -2/5, and that's going to be times 6/5. So I just took the reciprocal of the 5/6. And the reason I did that is I was hoping that I would have some common factors I could reduce, which I do between 3 and 6. So 3 goes into 3 once, into 6 twice. So now if I multiply 1 times -2 times 2, that leaves me -4. 1 times 5 is just 25. There are no common factors between 4 and 25, so -4/25 is my final result. Let's double check on the calculator, being very careful with parentheses. I'm going to put all my fractions in parentheses, so 1/3 times parentheses -2/5 parentheses divided by parentheses 5/6, and then I want fraction as a result, enter, and then enter, verifies -4/25 as a result. Moving on to the last one, part D, I have 2/3 minus a -2/3 plus a -1/4 minus 4. Well, there's a lot going on here, but I'm going to start by resolving my signs. So I'm going to start with 2/3 minus a negative is a plus 2/3. So I really am kind of dealing with not so much inside the parentheses, but removing the parentheses through working with the signs. Positive times a negative is a -1/4, and then I have minus 4. So I have some fractions, but 2 of them already have a common denominator, so I can combine 2/3 plus 2/3 is 4/3. So that makes things a little bit easier, and then just rewrite everything. Now I have essentially 3 fractions. I'm going to go ahead and write 4 as 4/1. I need common denominator of 12 for everything. So let's go ahead and get that. So 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 into 12 12 times. 12 times 4, 48. So moving left to right, order that it appears, subtraction and addition. I have common denominators, so I can combine the numerators. 16 minus 3 is 13 twelfths, minus 48 twelfths is what's left. I'm going to combine 13 minus 48 over 12 gives me -35 over 12. No common factors between 35 and 12. This should be my final result. Let's double check on the calculator. I'm going to clear everything that's there. I'm going to start with 2/3, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in parentheses, even though I don't really need to for the first one. Minus parentheses -2/3 plus parentheses -1/4 minus 4. Then I want a fraction as a result, so math, enter, enter. and it confirms my final result of negative 35 over 12. So understanding how to use your calculator is important for these problems. Use it as you need to along the way to simplify, but it's also very important that you're able to understand and work these problems out by hand.